Chuck Hagel, Jack Reed,
Dick Durbin,
John Murtha, George Casey,
George Casey,
Joe Biden, Richard Lugar.
Mr. Vice President.
3 years ago tonight, the first U.S. bombs fell on Baghdad and the first U.S. troops prepared to invade Iraq.
That there's a constant sort of perception, if you will, that's created because what's newsworthy is the car bomb in Baghdad. It's not all the work that went on that day in 15 other provinces. The Iraqis met every single political deadline that's been set for them. They haven't missed a single one.
A lot of mistakes have been made. We're not going to go back and unwind those mistakes, find a political settlement.
Yes, we had too few forces, and our analysis of what was going to happen after our forces were successful was inadequate. I would just say, well, if we'd been over that territory,
that by the end of the summer, 75% or so of the Iraqi brigades will be in the lead in their own battle space around Iraq.
I think you're likely to see more events like this, in which they aren't necessarily air assaults, but you'll see more large raids with a lot of Iraqi troops at the front.
I think we have had a low-grade civil war going on in Iraq, certainly the last 6 months, maybe the last year.
I do not believe, one, that we are in a civil war right now. Two, nor do I believe that a civil war is imminent or necessarily inevitable.
For instance, we're caught in a civil war. However you want to look at it, first of all, they said there was no insurgency. Then they said it's not a civil war. It is a civil war.
We have very good information that improvised explosive device technology is coming from the country of Iran into Iraq.
The Iranians will do anything to help us in Iraq.
I must say, Chris, I don't have great confidence. They're playing I think, a very delicate balancing act. On the one hand, they want a stable neighbor. On the other hand, I don't believe they want to see us succeed here.
Imagine what would happen if announced tomorrow in the headlines of the papers in America and throughout the world that Rumsfeld was fired. It would energize the rest of the world to be willing to help us.
I'm not going to make a public statement with regard to an appointee of the president. If President Bush ever wants to visit with me privately about my counsel on his cabinet, I'm sure he'll ask me.
Including the Secretary of Defense?
Well, he should, let's say he should offer his resignation because he
should it be accepted?
I would accept it. That's exactly
What
right.
about the Vice President?
Well, you can't fire the Vice President, so I think he'll have to handle it himself.
Should he offer his resignation?
Yeah. Well, certainly the Vice President has been the primary force in running this war.
I'm not a candidate for president. I won't run for president. I've taken a Sherman statement. If nominated, I will not run. If elected, I won't serve.
Since the vice president does not have any aspirations to be president, maybe a year or so before his term is up, he might step aside for one reason or another so you could put somebody else into the job and that person would then have a heads up on getting the nomination. Would anything like that ever make sense to you?
No. Nobody suggested it to me.
All right. That's a good answer, a direct answer.
President,
you don't see any shakeup coming.
I'm not in the business of making predictions. The president hasn't indicated he plans to make any changes. If he does and when he does, I'm sure he'll announce it. I would not look to Ted Kennedy for guidance and leadership on how we ought to manage national security, Bob. I think what Senator Kennedy reflects is sort of the pre-9/11 mentality about how we ought to deal with the world in that part of the world. We negotiated an arrangement whereby there'll be subcommittees in both the House and the Senate of the intelligence committees, that a larger number of members, for example, 7 members now in the Senate instead of just the 2 that have been briefed previously off the committee, will be fully briefed into the program.
Then why didn't Tom Daschle, why didn't the Democratic leaders do something about it?
Having served on the Intelligence Committee, I can tell you they put you in a box. They tell you the secret information and then say you're sworn to secrecy.
So you're saying that impeachment is a possibility?
I'm not ruling it in or out at this point in time.
It's probably the first time the Secret Service ever had to worry about a protectee shooting somebody else instead of being shot at. I mean, as the president said the other night, he's at 38% in the polls, and as a result of this incident, I shot the only trial lawyer in Texas who supported him.
Good money.